This incident took place in the early morning while Captain James Caldwell was still savoring his morning coffee. The Halcyon Tide, a massive cargo ship carrying thousands of tons of goods, was halfway through its 40-day journey from Boston to the port of Rotterdam when it happened. Everything seemed calm, just as it had been since they left port. The Halcyon Tide was a well-oiled machine, and its crew was experienced and disciplined. But what happened next was proof that even the most skillful crew could tremble when something unexpected happened. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The first mates gathered in the captain's cabin, reviewing the day's route. There were no expected deviations, just open sea and steady sailing. The captain traced their path on the digital map, nodding in approval. The weather was clear, the waters calm. "Textbook voyage," he muttered, taking another sip of coffee. The cargo ship's route took them past the Arctic and with Greenland in their rearview mirror ever since last night. It was nothing but an open ocean for 20 more days until Europe came into view. However, just as Captain Caldwell leaned back in satisfaction, the ship's radar let out a soft beep. A new blip appeared on the radar screen, small but steady. Caldwell frowned and zoomed in on the display. They were far from any major shipping routes, and no vessels were scheduled to cross their path. Whatever was out there, it wasn't supposed to be. Moments later, another crew member stationed near the bridge called out, "Captain, I see something on the horizon!" Caldwell immediately set down his coffee and strode to the window, and that's when he saw it too. A faint dot sat against the shimmering ocean, barely visible due to the sheer distance. Rodriguez grabbed a pair of binoculars and focused in. "It's small," he said slowly. "Definitely not another cargo ship. It could be a fishing boat." But Caldwell corrected him. "That's impossible. They can't reach this far from the coast to make it back." The captain stepped onto the bridge, joined by several crew members who had gathered out of curiosity. With every minute, the ship became more visible, and the radar beeped faster, indicating that the vessel moved closer to their ship. One of the younger deckhands let out a nervous chuckle. "Think they're lost?" he asked. "Maybe they need help?" It was a reasonable assumption. Small boats sometimes suffered equipment failure, leaving their crews stranded at sea. Caldwell didn't answer this assumption, studying the approaching boat. Something about it unsettled him. "Let's see what they do," Captain Caldwell said repeatedly as sweat dripped past his forehead. This was a weird situation, and there was no denying it, but things were about to get a whole lot stranger. The small boat was close enough now to make out distinct details, from its white captain's wheelhouse to the black border around its base. And yet the small boat did not alter course. It still moved straight toward them. Crew members rushed to the railing, trying to get a better view. Caldwell and Rodriguez lifted their binoculars. The boat appeared completely unmanned, yet moved with intent. The smaller vessel neared without slowing. Moments later, it rammed the cargo ship with a jarring crunch. The impact rattled the steel hull, sending crew members grasping for support. Though the damage to the Halcyon Tide was minimal, the moment was disturbing. The fishing boat, however, had splintered wood and a torn rubber bumper, clear signs of real damage. It simply sat there, pressed against their hull, unmoving, until it suddenly revved forward again and bumped them a second time. The repeated motion unsettled Caldwell. Boats didn't act like this on their own. "We need to check it out," Rodriguez finally said. Caldwell agreed. Both men geared up and descended the slick metal ladder to the fishing boat. Caldwell reached the cockpit door and pushed it open. Inside, it was empty. No crew, no struggle. Just silence and the hum of the engine. Then they noticed something odd. A thick metal pipe bolted to the floor and connected to the wheel. It forced the boat to maintain a straight heading indefinitely. Caldwell examined the setup. "This wasn't improvised," he said. The bolts were industrial grade, torqued tightly and precisely. Rodriguez crouched beside them. "This boat wasn't drifting. It was sent here, deliberately." In the cockpit, Rodriguez spotted a scrap of paper tucked under the wheel. He pulled it free. "It's a message," he said. Caldwell leaned in as Rodriguez read it aloud. "I am Captain Argyle Johnson. This ship is our last hope. I rigged it to find help out at sea. If you find this, please help us. P.S. Beware of the mines." The message changed everything. Caldwell and Rodriguez exchanged a single look. They couldn't ignore a distress call. Their scheduled route to Rotterdam would have to wait. Rodriguez raised a valid concern: mines. But Caldwell shook his head. "We'll deal with that when we get there. First, we find the crew." Back aboard the cargo ship, they studied a map of the surrounding waters. Greenland had been on their left last night, but now they were deep in open ocean. Caldwell used a compass to draw a 50-mile radius around their current position. Only one landmass appeared, a small island roughly 40 miles back. "That's got to be it," Rodriguez said. Caldwell agreed and gave immediate orders to reverse course. Even as he spoke, doubts tugged at his thoughts. They were heading toward the unknown, and with a warning about mines, every mile carried risk. Still, the ship turned, beginning a slow arc back toward the island marked on the map. As they completed the U-turn, the fishing boat drifted ahead, finally coming to a halt, fuel spent, motionless in open water. It was a quiet, haunting sight. They couldn't linger. Their cargo ship, not built for speed, would need 4 hours to reach the island. Driven by urgency, they made it in 3.5. A blip appeared on the radar: land. A cheer broke out in the captain's cabin. But just as the island appeared on radar, hundreds of red dots lit up around it. The crew's cheer fell silent. A perimeter of mines surrounded the island, forming a barrier impossible to cross by cargo ship. "Those must be the mines," Rodriguez muttered. Captain Caldwell selected 8 crew members, including himself and Rodriguez, to board the smaller lifeboat. No one was eager, but it was the only option. The minefield was dense. Some floated visibly atop the waves, easy to avoid, but radar showed more just beneath the surface. They navigated carefully, trusting their equipment. After 10 tense minutes, they reached the island safely. Why would someone surround this place with mines? And why were we lured here? Questions hung unanswered as the crew pulled the boat ashore and moved inland. The terrain was thick and humid. Foliage closed in around them, muffling sound. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. No footprints, no structures, only wilderness. Rodriguez pointed to a broken branch. Someone had passed through recently. The trail led to a clearing where a rusted pot and ash pile marked a recent campfire. "They're still here," Rodriguez said. Caldwell ordered the group to stay close. Something felt off. Then, without warning, figures erupted from the trees. Caldwell shouted, but something struck his head, and the world went black. He awoke to flickering firelight and a dull ache. Around him, his crew lay groaning in a crude forest camp. Wooden shelters surrounded them. Figures stood nearby, silent and watching. One man stepped forward, taller than the rest, with the unmistakable posture of leadership. "We searched your belongings," he said. "You're Captain James Caldwell." A murmur passed through the crowd. The leader exhaled. This was a mistake. Caldwell, still dazed, demanded answers. "You ambushed us. Why?" "We thought you were someone else," the man said. "We had to be sure before showing ourselves." The explanation only raised more questions. Who had they mistaken them for? And why were they hiding here? "We meant no harm," the man continued. "We needed to be certain you weren't one of them." "One of who?" Caldwell asked, but got no clear answer. Instead, the man gestured around the camp. "Let me explain." He introduced himself as Captain Argyll Johnson. "We were the ones who sent that fishing boat," he admitted. Caldwell and Rodriguez immediately understood. The fixed wheel, the desperate message, it all made sense now. "This is my crew," Argyll added, "and we've been stranded here for 2 months. Caldwell glanced around. Dozens of people moved through the camp. "That's too many for one boat." "We didn't come on one," Argyll said. "We had 4. Only one made it." He recounted the disaster. The lead boat hit a mine. It exploded instantly. Panic followed. 2 more boats tried to push through, but both were destroyed. The last boat, barely functional, had made it to shore. Rodriguez asked why they hadn't tried to leave. Argyll's voice hardened. "With what? Our last boat had almost no fuel. We were too far from land. We couldn't risk the mines again. They were trapped, by sea, by circumstance, and by whatever threat they believed was still watching. We were stranded, Argyle said, gesturing toward the trees. This island became our prison. With no radios, flares, or way to signal for help, the crew grew desperate. Their last coal-powered boat was rigged to sail on a fixed course, with the hope that someone would find it and trace it back. It was a long shot, but it worked. Caldwell looked around at the worn shelters and tired faces. 2 months they had endured this isolation. We rationed, adapted, Argyle explained. It was survival, plain and simple. Rodriguez circled back to the most troubling detail. You said you were checking if we were one of them. Who? Argyle's face darkened. That minefield wasn't placed by nature. There are others in these waters, traffickers. They use this island as a hidden depot. He led them beyond the trees, revealing a small, unguarded wooden hut. They store contraband here, mostly precious metals. It's so remote, no one comes. And if they do, the mines handle them. They know the path. We didn't. His crew had hidden every time the traffickers arrived. But when they saw movement in the forest, Caldwell's team, they assumed the worst and struck first. Now that the truth was out, there was no time to waste. Caldwell ordered the immediate evacuation. The 30 stranded crew members squeezed onto the lifeboat and were brought back to the Halcyon Tide. On board, they received food, basic medical checks, and the comfort of safety. For the next 20 days, both crews sailed together toward Rotterdam. As the port came into view, relief swept through the rescued men. Emergency responders met them on arrival, assisting those weak from malnutrition and illness. They were taken to hospitals for full evaluations. Caldwell and Rodriguez filed urgent reports about the island, the mines, and the hidden contraband. Interpol was alerted. Within hours, an investigation began. Naval units deployed drones and mine-clearing teams. 2 days later, a joint task force raided the island. The traffickers, unprepared and outnumbered, were captured without resistance. Major smuggling connections were uncovered, and arrests followed. The operation was a success. Caldwell informed his crew. Their intervention had helped dismantle an entire criminal network. Meanwhile, the fishermen recovered well. Arrangements were made for their return home. At the airport, Captain Argyle Johnson found Caldwell and shook his hand. If not for you, we wouldn't have survived, Argyle said. Caldwell shook his head. You led them through the worst. That's real leadership. As the rescued crew boarded their plane, they looked back one last time at the Halcyon Tide, the ship that saved them. News of the rescue spread fast. Media outlets hailed Caldwell's crew as heroes. But to them, they had simply answered a call for help. With the cargo delivered, the Halcyon Tide prepared for its next voyage. The crew took a short rest in port, but the sea was calling again. Caldwell stood at the helm, watching the open ocean stretch endlessly before him. No one ever knew what waited out there, but that was the thrill of the sea.